Welcome, dear listener, to our shared exploration of a profound spiritual truth. The closer you are to wisdom, the farther you are from ego. In our time together today, I will guide you through the layers and dimensions of this principle, revealing not just its depth, but also its practical implications in our daily lives. Let us begin by understanding what we mean by wisdom. Wisdom, in its essence, is the deep understanding of life, its processes, and its interconnectedness. It transcends mere knowledge, which is often about gathering facts. Wisdom involves seeing beyond the surface, recognizing the essence of beings and things. It is the ability to discern the heart of matters, to see the soul of the world in its purest form. Now let's contrast this with ego. Ego is our sense of self-importance. It's our social mask, the identity that we parade in front of others. It is built from our desires, our fears, and our ambitions. Ego thrives on comparison, on being better or having more than others. It is inherently separative, often distancing us from our true selves and from others. The journey towards wisdom involves moving away from the ego. This is not because the ego is simply bad, but because the nature of ego is based on a limited understanding of the self. It is confined to what it wants and fears, not what actually is. Wisdom, conversely, is about embracing a broader, more inclusive view of life. Consider the way a wise person might approach a conflict or a challenge. They tend to have a calmness and a clarity that comes from a deep-seated understanding of life's fluid nature. They know that life is a series of ebbs and flows, and that each moment is transient. This understanding allows them to act from a place of peace rather than from a frantic need to assert themselves or to dominate the situation.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Now think about how this contrasts with a person acting from a place of ego. Such a person might feel threatened by conflict or immediately look for ways to impose their will. Their actions are driven by the need to protect their self-image or to enhance their status in the eyes of others. There is little room for understanding or compassion in such interactions because the ego is always looking outward, concerned with how things appear rather than how they truly are. Moving closer to wisdom means learning to quiet this ego. It means shifting our focus from how we are seen to understanding what we truly see. It involves recognizing the impermanence of our thoughts, our emotions, and our worldly statuses. This is not an easy process. It requires us to confront aspects of ourselves that we might prefer to ignore, our insecurities, our baseless fears, our unwarranted pride. Wisdom teaches us to let go, to detach not only from material possessions but also from views of ourselves and the world that no longer serve us. This detachment isn't about indifference. It's about developing a clearer, more compassionate perspective. It's about seeing the dance of creation with all its chaos and beauty and recognizing ourselves as part of this tapestry, not as outsiders looking in or as central figures controlling the narrative. Imagine how freeing it would be to operate from this space. Suddenly, the pressures to perform, to be perfect, or to always be in control start to lessen. You begin to experience life more fully, more authentically. You are able to love more freely, to give without expecting anything in return, because you understand that this is the true nature of abundance. In this context, let's consider a significant question. How does our attachment to ego-based identities limit our ability to experience life in its fullest, most vibrant form? As we deepen our exploration into the relationship between wisdom and ego, it's important to understand the transformative process of moving from an ego-centric to a wisdom-centric life. This shift is not merely philosophical, it involves tangible changes in how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. The first major step in this transformation is awareness. Awareness is the light that illuminates the shadows of our ego. It allows us to see how often our actions are motivated by desires for approval, fear of rejection, or the need for control. Each of these motivations stems from the ego's limited perception of security and worth. Imagine you are in a situation where someone challenges your opinion. If you are operating from an ego-centric perspective, your immediate reaction might be defensiveness or anger. However, if you have cultivated a level of awareness, you can observe this reaction without immediately acting on it. You can step back and question, why does this challenge upset me? What am I trying to protect? This moment of pause is where wisdom begins to seep in. It allows us to choose responses that align with our deeper values rather than our surface-level impulses. The next step in moving towards wisdom is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean passive resignation, but rather an embracing of reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This means accepting our own flaws and imperfections, as well as those of others. When we stop fighting reality, we conserve energy that can be used for more constructive purposes, like growth and healing. For instance, consider how the acceptance of impermanence can transform our experience of loss. The ego resists loss, seeing it as something that diminishes us. Wisdom, however, understands that change and loss are natural and necessary parts of life. They teach us about the value of the moment and the transient nature of all things. When we accept this, we can move through our grief more fluidly, with a heart open to healing and new experiences. As our journey towards wisdom continues, we must also cultivate humility. Humility in this sense isn't about belittling oneself, but about recognizing that we are but small parts of a vast, intricate universe. This realization is liberating. It frees us from the exhausting need to prove our worth through achievements or accumulations. Humility enables us to learn from everyone and everything. It opens us up to the vast reservoir of wisdom that exists in every encounter, every moment. A wise person knows that they can learn as much from a quiet conversation with a grandparent or an interaction with a child as they can from acclaimed scholars or sages. Now, consider the transformative power of compassion in our journey towards wisdom. Compassion is an empathetic understanding of the suffering of others, coupled with a desire to alleviate it. It is a natural extension of wisdom because the more we understand the true nature of life, the more we recognize our shared experiences and vulnerabilities. When we act from a place of compassion, we transcend our ego. Our actions are no longer about gaining personal accolades or benefits, but are driven by a genuine concern for the well-being of others. Think of moments when you've acted with pure compassion. How did it feel? Often we find a deep sense of fulfillment and connection in these moments, far exceeding any pleasure derived from ego-driven achievements. As we reflect on these concepts, let us also consider how our everyday choices might be influenced if we were to prioritize wisdom over ego. What changes would you make in your personal relationships, your career, or your approach to life's challenges? As we continue our exploration into the profound connection between wisdom and the diminishing influence of ego, it becomes increasingly clear that this journey is not just about inner transformation, but also about how we interact with the world. This stage of our discussion focuses on the external manifestations of wisdom and how they influence our relationships, communities, and ultimately, the broader society. Shifting our attention outward, let's examine how wisdom alters our interactions with others. A person rooted in wisdom treats relationships not as transactions, where affection, support, and kindness are traded for personal gain, but as opportunities to connect, share, and grow together. This perspective fundamentally changes how we approach others, moving us from a mindset of competition and scarcity to one of collaboration and abundance. Consider the dynamics in a family or a team where wisdom prevails. Communication is based on trust and openness rather than manipulation or fear of vulnerability. Each member feels valued and heard, which fosters a deeper mutual respect and a more resilient bond. This environment nurtures the potential of all its members, allowing them to flourish in their unique ways without the pressure to conform or outshine others. Moreover, wisdom encourages us to look beyond superficial differences to recognize the essential humanity we share with everyone. This recognition is crucial in our increasingly diverse societies. It helps us overcome prejudices and biases that are often the products of an uninformed ego clinging to outdated or fear-based beliefs. By embracing a wise perspective, you begin to appreciate the rich tapestry of human experience and contribute to a more inclusive and equitable world. Now let's turn our gaze to leadership and governance. When leaders operate from a place of wisdom rather than ego, their decisions reflect a commitment to the well-being of all rather than the interests of a few. Wise leadership is characterized by foresight, the ability to foresee and mitigate problems before they escalate, and the wisdom to create systems that promote sustainability and well-being over short-term gains. Imagine a society where leaders are guided by the principles of wisdom, where policies are crafted not only with economic efficiency in mind, but with compassion, sustainability, and fairness at their core. Such a society would likely be more resilient to crises, as its foundations are built on the collective good rather than the unstable pillars of individual greed or ambition. The impact of wisdom on societal structures is profound. It can transform educational systems, for instance, shifting the focus from rote learning and competition to fostering critical thinking, empathy, and a lifelong love for learning. Education becomes not just a means to a lucrative end, but a journey of true enlightenment, where students learn to live harmoniously with themselves and others. Reflect for a moment on the institutions and systems you interact with daily. How might they benefit from a greater infusion of wisdom? What changes would you see if these systems prioritize the holistic development of individuals and the community? As we embrace wisdom, we also learn the value of simplicity. In a world where consumerism and the accumulation of goods are often mistaken for success and happiness, wisdom teaches us that less is often more. A simple life, one focused on meaningful relationships, personal growth, and contribution to community, can bring more joy and satisfaction than a life filled with material possessions. This realization can free us from the relentless pursuit of more, a pursuit that often fuels our ego but leaves our soul unfulfilled. By choosing simplicity, we align ourselves more closely with the natural world, which operates not through accumulation but through cycles of giving and receiving, growth and decay. In this context, consider how your life might change if you prioritized wisdom over material success. How would your daily choices shift? What might you let go of, and what might you gain in return? In this final segment of our exploration, let's delve deeper into the profound implications of living a life guided by wisdom rather than driven by ego. As we have journeyed through the concepts of awareness, acceptance, humility, and compassion, we now reach the pinnacle of how these elements are interwoven into the fabric of a wise life, influencing not only our personal growth, but also our collective evolution. Living from a place of wisdom fundamentally alters our approach to life's inevitable challenges and sufferings. Instead of viewing difficulties solely as personal afflictions or unfair disturbances in an otherwise stable existence, wisdom allows us to see them as integral to the human experience, as opportunities for deepening our understanding and refining our spirits. Consider how a wise approach to suffering differs from an ego-driven response. The ego, which seeks comfort and shuns pain, might lead us to avoid confronting our issues, perhaps numbing ourselves with distractions or blaming external factors for our discomfort. Wisdom, however, teaches us resilience. It helps us to face suffering head-on, not with resignation but with the courage to grow through it. Every challenge becomes a lesson in strength, every setback a potential for rebirth. Furthermore, wisdom calls us to transcend our individual experiences and connect with a larger purpose. It asks us to consider, how can my struggles serve as a conduit for greater understanding and compassion? How can my experiences benefit others? This shift from a self-centered perspective to a community-oriented outlook is transformative. It not only alleviates our own suffering by giving it meaning, but also contributes to a collective healing and understanding. In engaging with our communities, wisdom guides us to act with integrity and justice. It teaches us that true justice isn't merely about retribution, but about restoring balance. It sees the wrongdoer not only as someone who must be punished, but as someone who has lost their way and needs guidance. This approach to justice is restorative rather than punitive, focusing on healing the community and rehabilitating the offender. Imagine a community where actions are guided by such wisdom. Conflicts are more likely to be resolved through dialogue and mutual understanding rather than force or coercion. The community not only survives but thrives, as its members feel genuinely cared for and supported. Now, as we consider the path towards a wisdom-led life, it is essential to recognize that this is not a journey we undertake alone. Community is a crucial aspect of our spiritual evolution. We grow through our relationships, through the challenges we face together, and the solutions we create collaboratively. Wisdom teaches us the value of interdependence, that our well-being is intimately connected to the well-being of others. Reflect on the communities you are part of. How can you contribute to creating a more wisdom-oriented culture in these spaces? How can you encourage practices that uplift everyone, practices that speak to the best in each person? Lastly, living a life guided by wisdom means embracing change. Not just external changes, but internal transformations. As we align more closely with wisdom, our values and goals may shift. What once seemed vitally important may become less so. New values may emerge, guiding us toward different actions and priorities. This is a natural and healthy progression, a sign of growth and adaptation. In conclusion, the closer you are to wisdom, the farther you move from ego. This journey transforms not only how you view yourself, but how you interact with the world. It leads to a life of deeper fulfillment, greater peace, and meaningful connections. It creates a legacy of compassion, justice, and understanding that can transcend generations. As we part ways in this conversation, I invite you to carry forward the insights and practices discussed. Let them nourish your spirit and guide your actions as you continue to navigate the beautiful, complex tapestry of life. Thank you for sharing this space and time, and may your path be ever illuminated by the light of wisdom.